Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the June meeting of the Philipstown Conservation Board. Just in the way of housekeeping, we are going to do the public hearing last. I think that we'll go pretty quickly through our other agenda items. During anybody that needs to speak, those that are not familiar with the Conservation Board, please make sure that you get up to the microphone so that you can be heard and recorded. Okay? With that, has everybody looked at the April minutes? Because I'd like to have a resolution to accept the April minutes.
So moved.
Do I have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Okay, so let's go on to the first agenda item, which is Lake Surprise Revocable Trust, 60 Lake Surprise Road, please. We had done a site visit a couple weeks ago on this.
Glenn Watson, from Beatty & Watson. Following your meeting, we made two specific changes to the plat, which are demonstrated here, or shown here. First of all, we added a restrictive note. We identified the spot on the map where Max had pointed out the possibility of wetlands, and we put a circle around it with a radius of 100 feet, and we identified that as point A and put this note which reads, prior to undertaking any activity regulated under Chapter 93, Freshwater Wetlands and Watercourses of the Philipstown Code within 100 feet of this point, consultation with the town's natural resource officer, wetlands inspector, is required to determine whether it is necessary to obtain a wetlands permit. And the second thing we did, which we kind of talked about, but is we slid the proposed house about 100 feet to the south, which shortened the driveway, eliminated a threat to the steeper slopes, although we weren't on the steeper slopes. And we think that's been responsive to your comments. And I'll just also point out to you that we talked about that waiver at the very beginning of our site visit, where there was a question about wetlands near the property and whether we'd be disturbing it. That's all I have.
Do you have any questions or comments? So Glenn, do you require a short memo from us to the planning board? Or do you think what you're presenting to them is?
Short memo to the planning board saying, if you're,
Yep.
particularly one that says you're happy and satisfied.
Yes. Yes. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. So next is going to be Desmond Fish, Library.
I think we should just set up a site visit. I don't know if Cheryl, if we can coordinate that. I don't know if anybody's here from the project.
Yes. I think Margaret is handling this.
Okay. Oh, right.
Yeah.
Hi, Margaret McManus with Beatty & Watson. Sorry. This is the existing conditions plan, which shows the library is at the corner of Route 9D and 301. This is the existing building, existing parking areas. It is in the SPO. The project is to build a pavilion. It's an open-air pavilion on this end. There's a closed storage area at this end of the building, some open-air patios. We have to grade the slope back a little back here and divert any runoff that may be coming to the back of the building to both sides of the building. There's town-regulated wetland here, which we are beyond the 100-foot buffer. There's also town-regulated wetlands in the back of the property, and again, we are beyond the buffer. So the project, all of the project lies outside of the buffer of any of the wetlands. We have to do some regrading of the parking lot, and that's about it. The building has been staked, so if you do a site visit, we'll be able to see the
Okay.
limits
So
of
we
the
should arrange a site visit. We want to try to do it now? What's best for everybody? A weekend or a weekday?
Weekend is best for me. I like the Saturday mornings if possible.
Saturday morning works.
Here's a render of what the building will look like.
This is Father's Day weekend if people are going to be away. I don't know. For those of you who celebrate. Wait, this Sunday? This Sunday is Father's Day.
Yes, you don't have to do it now, but you should recuse yourself. Okay. Yeah, when the time
I
comes,
won't
that's
be around
fine.
the following.
So what do we want to do? We want to do it this Saturday, next Saturday?
Madeline won't be around this Saturday. I won't be around the next Saturday.
Why don't we do it the following Saturday then?
The 29th?
Yeah. That works, Saturday, 9 o'clock? Does that work for everybody? Work for you, Margaret?
I might be out of town.
29th, yeah, I should be here.
Saturday. What's that?
I believe I'll be here in town.
Okay, so let's try to set it up for June 29th, Saturday at 9 a.m.
Otherwise, I'll send Glenn. No.
That's fine. Okay. Thank you. Is Mr. or Mrs. Vasta for 9 Cliffside Court, Garrison, New York?
How you doing? My name is Luis Ruiz. My wife's Amanda Vasta. We're here looking for, I guess, a referral back to the building board and to answer any questions you have. Unfortunately, my engineer couldn't make it today.
Okay, since we have very little, matter of fact, no information on this, is this a new home?
Yes,
Okay.
we're trying to build a new home.
So on that parcel, was there ever in recent years a home, or it's
No,
just vacant land?
Raw land.
Okay, so I am assuming that the issues are steep slopes?
Yes.
Okay,
The issue is there's 30% grade slopes only for the driveway and a portion of the foundation as well of the house.
do you have, I don't think you have it with you, but you have, preliminary plans that have been drawn?
Yes.
That we have not gotten?
Yes.
So you're going to need to get those to Cheryl. In this case, I think, for the time being, I think electronic would work because it's a small lot. What is it, probably 1 or 2 acres?
1.2.
Yeah. So I think that could expedite it. It would be great if you could find out from your engineer whether the Saturday, the 29th, they would be available. We're going to do a site visit at Desmond Fish at 9 o'clock. We could probably do where you are at roughly 10 o'clock.
That would work.
Yeah.
It's already staked as well.
Yeah. And what we would like is the driveway to be staked out.
Yes.
If the home site or any septic field is within,
The home site, the septic, the well, and the driveway staked out.
okay, perfect. Okay. 10 o'clock, yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, and you please get us plans beforehand. Yes. Great, thank you. Have a good evening. We're going to now do Benjamin Patton, 12 Fox Hollow Road, which is I believe, essentially, we'll call it a repair, but a permit for removal of existing bridge and repair of a new bridge.
Yeah, so you
Construction.
guys, yeah, construction of the new bridge, you guys should have all the paperwork for that, or?
Yes.
We have it.
So as me and Max discussed, I'm gonna take out the old bridge pipe, and I'm gonna put sandbags to, close off the waterways either side. Remove it, should take me a couple hours to remove it. And sweep everything clean, make sure everything's nice and clean, and remove the sandbags all on the same day.
Yeah, I think it's a fairly simple project that was out on the site. It's just the only access point for the homeowner to get closer to his home. So basically, what is it? It's like failing timbers right now that they're
Yeah, I
holding
have
up.
pictures on my phone,
Yeah.
and he's had a steel plate over top of the bridge for several months, costing him $800 a month for this steel plate, and I just told him to have it removed, because, I mean, it's just a waste of money. So he's been parking his car at the entrance of the driveway to walk across. That right there, I just showing you
Stay
where
near
I
the
would put the
microphone.
sandbags. Close off, and now
Can you
that,
stand a little closer to the
Yeah,
microphone?
thank
Sure.
you.
Yeah.
and now that the water is kind of, going down a decent amount, so it wouldn't be that hard to stop the water this time of year. Hopefully, we don't get no heavy rains.
Well, July 8th is coming,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but hopefully that was a
Yeah.
once. Questions, thoughts?
Is there any work on the footer? Do you have to like rebuild the footers for the new bridge?
Everything's off of, I'm gonna be away from, once I do everything, I'm gonna put footings outside, and there's a company that's up in Wappingers or Poughkeepsie is gonna come in and put helical piles in, and then I pour right over top of them. There's a collar that hooks on top of them. It's all in the blueprints there. It's pretty cut and dry. And then Tino, I brought Tino with me. He's gonna do all the steel work, and I'm gonna put wood over top. Sorry. I'm gonna put wood. I'm gonna put wood over the top and bolt everything down. It's pretty, I'm not gonna just, we're not touching any water, really.
Yeah, I was just wondering like what kind of work, so you got some steel work, some concrete work.
Concrete work, the helical piles, and just putting the wood on top of his steel.
And at that point, when you're doing that work, the water will be flowing?
Yes. I'm gonna have that thing closed off for a day. 4 hours, 5 hours tops.
So I haven't seen the site. Max, you've been there. Does anything need to be done in terms of preventing any type of silt or debris from getting into the stream?
He was saying that what we were talking about is putting sandbags along the pond edge there to just stop flow,
Okay.
allow it to dry. Then he would sweep it clean if there was any debris, and then take the sandbags out,
Okay.
just for that 4 hour period. And then your footings are going to be in the road. They're going to be in the road surface.
Yes.
So it's already, he's building them into, and it's a good distance away from the banks of that earthen area there in the picture.
So in other words, we have existing footings here, or whatever, abutment. We're going to go out.
Yes. Tino's gonna set 30-foot beams on those helical piles into my cement form.
So when the cement is being poured, is there any need for us to be worried about?
We're 8 feet away from each side, completely away.
Do you think that there's a need to put any sort of buffer material between the?
You could do we could do like core logs or something
Yeah.
that you can get ESP. Like
Yeah, that's
filters
fine.
out.
In case you have some
Yeah.
leakage or some
Yeah,
over.
that makes sense.
Yeah. Shouldn't be an issue.
I think it's pretty easy. I mean, and it's his only access to his home, so.
It's gotta
Yeah, I
be
mean,
done.
you can't even get if God forbid the guy's house burns down, there's no way a fire truck is crossing that bridge.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a
Or
$2.5
any
million home.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. So I'm comfortable having the board vote on a permit to do the work, and you can issue it ASAP.
Do we have any other comments, questions, or concerns? Okay, in that case, do I have a motion to approve a permit?
So moved.
Second? Second. All in favor? Aye.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Okay. We're at Hudson Highland Reserve,
Yeah.
right? Hudson Highland Reserve?
You had your site visit a couple of Sundays ago, and plans have not changed. We showed you the entrance to the proposed entrance to the Hudson Highlands Reserve, showed you some of the areas where the gutter would be reconstructed until it enters the wetland buffer, and then it would, the drainage would run to the riprap swale, which we've about doubled in size, and we've and built it in a stronger fashion as shown on the plans, and we're hoping that you look favorably upon it. There's not a lot more to tell you about it than we discussed out in the field. Unless you have questions, I'd be happy to try to answer them or hand off to Margaret if necessary.
So we had spoke briefly before the meeting, so you're looking for a memo from
Well, we're
us to
looking
the
for a
planning board.
permit from you or a letter that says that permit will be issued, perhaps conditioned on the state permit, but we want to be in a position to go back to the planning board for final approval, and as unusual as it is, they put all of what are normally conditions to final approval, conditions to applying for final approval. So I need to get these things in order.
So I know one of the things we had discussed in the field, but we don't have a plan yet, is basically a mitigation plan. So what I'm asking you is, would it be enough for right now for us to basically tell the planning board in the memo that this is, that, you know, the conservation board would permit this?
I'm not quite.
Because I don't know if we have enough information to give a full.
There is a mitigation plan. I mean, we showed you that. That was that whole drainage basin is in form of mitigation in the terms
Right,
of erosion control to begin with, and the installation of retention ponds, detention ponds, the filter, all of that stuff is mitigating the impact, and those plans are full and
Right,
complete and have been
We also
submitted.
talked about potential plantings, which we don't have a plan for. So what I'm asking is does everybody feel we have enough to grant a conditional permit right now? Or would it suffice, not a hardship for the applicant, for us to say, basically, we're looking for a few more details, but this is, ultimately what needs to be done, and the planning board the conservation board will provide a permit? Because I just don't feel we have, I don't know if Max, you can jump in. I'm not sure we have enough right now that we can say everything and anything we're looking for, though we're not looking for a lot here. And this is also pending approval from both the DEC and the DOT. In terms.
That's true. Margaret seems to think we have enough time. I'm a little bit, frankly, one of the options would be subject to the approval of a planting plan by Max in the resolution. There's really very little disturbance, and most of that disturbance is going to be riprap. So it's a very minor, in my estimation, any disturbance that we're replacing with plantings is very small and something that Max is certainly capable to do.
I think in terms of a mitigation strategy, I think what you were alluding to before regarding water quality was more of what, on top of plantings, however minor they may end up being. But I think I would rather see that strategy, like you were talking about, saying preserving water quality coming off the site and entering Clove Creek. That's more of a paramount importance, I think, in my mind. So if there's any if we can talk a little bit more about the retention basins, water quality at the end, at the ultimate discharge point, what that looks like, from a road salt standpoint. I don't know how the roads will be maintained in perpetuity in that community. I mean, what measures are in place at the water quality coming out there that could be,
So the plan has been designed in compliance with New York State DEC stormwater practices. All runoff from new impervious surfaces is collected and treated and will be treated before it gets to this point. Beyond that, we have captured a lot of runoff and are recharging it on site to mimic the existing condition. We're exceeding the RRV quantity by keeping most of the water on site. Most of the water that runs off doesn't even go over new impervious surfaces. All of the roofs are collected and go to rain gardens. All of the roads are collected and either go to bioretention areas, or we're using 2 filtrary units at the entrance to the road because, you know, the end point is always the hardest part to capture. It's very hard to find something to capture the lowest part of the road in, so we tend to use the filtrary units here. These filtrary units are capturing the lower part of this road, everything. There's a bioretention here that's getting everything else, so it's just the lower part of this road. And then actually anything that runs in off of Route 9 for this little stretch will also get captured and treated in the filtrary units before everything is discharged to the pipe. So the plan is in compliance with the New York State DEC regulations.
So I guess any areas that might be, you know, bioretention areas or any area that potentially could have some sort of a planting component. I mean, we don't have detail on that, what would be going in those areas. So maybe that's an opportunity where we could incorporate some sort of a mitigation planting plan regarding what, you know, native species could go in those areas and how those will be maintained. You know, I know that the DEC has
There's
standard.
an HOA.
Yeah.
So they will be maintained. There's many documents about the HOA, what the HOA is maintaining, which includes all of the stormwater practices on site.
Yeah.
So that's already been covered under the seeker review and the planning board review.
Yeah, but maybe there's an opportunity to, you know, go beyond whatever, you know, general seed mix would go into those areas that we.
Yes,
could-
as far
yeah.
as the planting plan, I'd be more than happy to take some input.
Didn't we have a question about quantifying how much soil was gonna be pulled off of there? And then you were gonna reuse it on site somewhere?
For the amount
Out by the
of cut and
riprap, you're
fill
gonna be
in?
cutting into that hillside. And I think Max had
Right.
asked to
I mean,
quantify the
there
amount that's
are,
coming
I
out
mean,
of it.
the whole site has a major cut and fill. So this little area will be taken care of in the overall cut and fill of the whole site.
I think my question was more pertaining to, you know, if we were going to quantify a planting area, how we would maybe ask you to replace it somewhere else. But I don't know. I think my thought is more of from a water quality perspective, ultimately, because there is not a lot of disturbance in that area. And what we can do in those other, you know, planted areas that you'll be creating to, you know, create this stormwater system, how we could plant those areas with natives and, you know, make sure that those are.
Sure, you know, I have a landscape architect who can design my planting plan for me. We can certainly get it to you for a review. If you have a list of plants that you prefer, let us know that and we'll put it together.
Okay.
Are we gonna need a maintenance plan?
There is an HOA maintenance plan.
So my first is, do we have any other questions or comments? And, I mean, we don't have a lot in the plan right now. Are we comfortable doing a draft right now? Basically a conditional permit, because there's going to be a lot of holes that need to be filled in, and it's probably a little more than we normally have.
Would that satisfy the planning board, the conditional permit?
Oh, a
Or a
conditional
memo.
would certainly, I mean, personally, but this is just me, and I don't want to influence everybody, I would be more comfortable with a memo that, you know, we just need a few more details, but they are going to get a permit.
I don't know the history with that kind of situation.
So, I mean, so
I think
sort of,
memo makes more sense right now.
Certainly, if we make a submittal of all of the planting plans before the next board meeting at the beginning of July, you'd be in a position
Yes.
to
So I
approve that then.
Yeah, I know, as I said personally, that's why I'm asking the rest of the board. I'd be more comfortable giving a memo and just saying we're looking for a few more details and we will be providing, expect that a permit will be issued in July.
May I ask a question there? So the memo is giving the green light to the project even though we're waiting for more information?
Well, it's not a green, basically that it should be permittable, and we're not talking about the whole Hudson Highland Reserve. This is just this tiny little way.
Would be a conditional permit so they can get going.
That's not.
Once
I
we
used
would
the
then
wrong word.
approve that in July, yes.
I guess I don't understand what the memo, I used the wrong word by green light, I mean
The
green lighting this permit, not
The
the whole
memo
thing.
is telling the planning board that, there's a few details that we want to work out, that we'd like, the applicants will come back in July. And if they have any questions, they'll work with Max, or they'll contact myself and Cheryl, and we'll finish that, and we'll be ready to go.
But we're essentially satisfied with the engineering.
Yes.
That's been presented.
Okay, that's only
Exactly.
my green
Yep.
light, not that, I already know the difference between the
Yeah.
planning board and that.
Does everybody agree with that? Lou? But,
Not satisfied where it exits on that speedway. Sorry. That's a death trap.
okay, but that's not our
I
purview.
know that. It's not our purview. I'm just letting everybody know.
That's not our purview,
You'll wreck a week out there.
so.
When will the permits for the Department of Transportation be available? And what was the other permit? I forget.
We've been in contact with them, so sometimes it's very hard to get a hold of the DOT, so it's
Yeah.
in the works.
This isn't the rate limiting factor then, this is really kind of input into the planning board, but they're not, the Department of Transportation is not waiting for
We've already
this.
had letters from the Department of Transportation too. We're in the second stage of a three-stage process.
Okay.
So I think what we should do is we'll provide a memo to the planning board ASAP.
Thank you.
And then and basically you'll provide additional materials and we'll mention it within the memo for the July meeting where hopefully we will be issuing a permit.
Thank you.
Okay? Thank you.
Is the planning plan the only expectation that we have?
I think the board also wanted clarification on the maintenance agreement and all of anything that you could pull out of what was already provided earlier on. I think any, snippets of information that would lend benefit to this.
Yep.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
can get that from the attorney.
Yeah,
Great, thank you.
that makes sense. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have somebody here representing Lake Celeste? Yes, no?
Doesn't look like it.
Okay.
Don't know how to proceed with that one.
Yeah, I don't know how to proceed with it also. Just as a little description, because both Max and I, this goes back months ago, had spoken to, I think his name was Mr. Reyes, with a firm that does both limnology and herbicide application. For years, we have been providing a herbicide permit to control invasives in Lake Celeste. What I know I didn't know, but I think you were also ignorant of it too, is they were only treating part of the lake because a lot of the lake is within the buffer of a New York DEC regulated wetland. So it was almost a waste of time, So this company has put together what in my mind is actually a very, very thorough plan. They've gone to get basically what you need to do with the New York State DEC is to get, it's an Article 24, I believe. Is it 24 or 25? 24?
Yep.
Which is a special permit to be able to do that. And they have done that, and they very carefully documented what they're planning to remove. And I think it's a sound plan, but we were expecting somebody to be here. I'm not sure we really should be voting on this without them present. What's your feeling, Max? Because you're going to have to oversee it.
I guess if you're, I mean, if you're comfortable with that this would only be an expansion of what they had been permitted to do in previous years, then I would be comfortable, moving forward with it. I don't, if, in terms of a whole lake treatment situation, just because it's gonna be a timely situation for them.
Yes, it is.
This is the beginning of the treatment season, so,
They have been we have been issuing permits back to when Dave Klotzel was wetland inspector. As I said, the one detail that I think was overlooked, unfortunately, it was just part of the lake, because I know in my mind, I would have said, maybe not. And it's, if you're gonna do it, let's do it and hopefully try to, hopefully within 4 or 5 years, and, which I know they have done, is not allowing any outside boats in and so on. There's a way to start controlling this.
if we looked at it from the perspective of if they were just coming back to us for a permit to do the work that they've been previously permitted, we would approve it. And DEC is okay approving what they want to do in their regulatory capacity. So I guess we could look at it from that perspective.
So, I don't think I saw any information on this. Was there
It
any
was sent
information?
to us electronically.
Okay. Did we get the DEC permit?
Yes, we have the
Okay.
DEC permit, and it's
Yeah.
very well thought, at least in my opinion, it's very, very well thought out. The mapping of species is very, very well worked out. The only comment I had to Max is, of about the dozen species they want to eradicate, 10 or 11 are exotics, which are in lakes. 1 or 2, I'd rather them call it opportunist, because they are native. And sometimes you do need to control that, but I'd rather us have precedent and start calling that, because I think with like the Garrison Fish and Game Club, some of the plants they were trying to eradicate, they were calling invasive, but like pond shield is a native, right? And it would be better to just call it an opportunist plant that is taking over. So, with that said, are we comfortable with making a motion to approve and let Max oversee this?
I think so.
If the DEC has already
Okay.
permitted it, I feel comfortable.
Okay, so then I'd like to have a motion. Grant. Second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. All right, I wish somebody had been here, but, because I think it would be a learning experience. It was very well laid out. Okay, with that said, the main venue. We are continuing the public hearing for the Garrison Golf Club Plan Development District for the Hudson Valley Shakespeare Festival.
Good evening. Adam Stellero from Cy Pageant and Roselle on behalf of Hudson Valley Shakespeare. So maybe just before the hearing, to catch folks up on where we've been since the last session of the public hearing, which was in April. We submitted, we've been back and forth with the board and with Max on questions that the board has had about mostly about the monitoring and mitigation plan. We submitted a number of revisions, a lot of those having to do with the plantings and the water level in the pond, answered questions about how deep each of the 2 sections of the pond were, the lower or southern portion of the pond and the northern portion of the pond. And as a result of those discussions, the board at the last May meeting asked us to rethink sort of where the plantings were going around the pond, and so we submitted on May 28th a revised plantings plan. Unfortunately, I don't have a board for that, although I did see it up on your new TV screens when I walked in, so I don't know, maybe there's a way to put that up electronically, but that was it was like the color map that was in the...
We all received maps for that.
Otherwise, I can just point it out on the map here. Okay. So essentially, the old plantings plan was going to have a band of plantings all the way around both sections of the pond in the area of the pond that's been lowered, where the water level's been lowered, to establish new wetland habitat around the edge of the pond. And what we've done at the request of the board is to shift plantings up mostly into the northern end of the pond, which is the shallower part of the pond, in order to create more of an emergent marsh area in the northern part. So this is heavily planted up here, and then the plantings will continue down on the eastern side of the pond, along with invasives removal around that whole area that's staying planted. And then the area on the eastern side will not be planted as previously planned. Oh, there we go. So just for folks who don't have this in front of them, the map up there just sort of lays out what I was just talking about, which you can see the green areas are the planting areas. The areas in pink are the former golf green remediation, where we'll be taking off the top approximately 6 inches of soil, 6 to 12 inches of soil that has former pesticides and metals from maintaining those areas as golf greens over many years. The areas in orange show where the invasives removal and maintenance is going to take place, and then the blue areas are water, and the yellow area is the area where where the water level is lowered. So I did want to bring to the board's attention that we had been talking about how to maintain the water level so that the plantings are not at risk of getting washed away. We talked about this a little bit at the May meeting. The water level is currently maintained via siphon, and so what we'd proposed, and this is in the most recent version of the mitigation plan, is that there be a mechanical pump rather than a siphon, so that can be really monitored and adjusted quickly if needed, if they're in the event of a storm. Since the last meeting, we've determined that there is a pump house sort of down here. Do you want to get the other board?
Pump house is right there.
Okay. So there's a pump house here. You can see it on that color version. It's up on the screen as well. And the pump house is where the irrigation pumps used to be for the golf course. So, this pond used to be pumped for irrigation. Those pumps have not been in service for a while, but there are 2 pumps in there that were in there for redundancy. So we would only need to use one. We just need to, determine the status of those pumps. There's still electricity to the building, so we wouldn't have to rerun electricity out there. So that would be, very beneficial to be able to reuse those pumps for that. So we're in the process of thinking through that. The one thing about using those pumps is that we would have to figure out how the discharge from that pump would work. The siphon currently sort of goes over the under the road and over the edge of the dam to discharge into the creek below. And with the pump house, we'd have to engineer where the discharge would go in order to get the water from the pump house down to the creek. We have a preliminary idea of how that might work, but we would like this to be a condition of the permit so that we could figure out exactly, in coordination with Max and with the board, where the final discharge point would be. So this is the dam here, this is the pond, there's the pump house. And so the area of potential additional disturbance would be to get under the road on this side of the dam, and figure out how to engineer that down to the creek.
Are the existing pumps electric or diesel?
They're electric, but we would have, I think, Margaret, is there already, is Margaret still here? Okay. There's our backup generator already?
I don't
So
think
we
there's a
would-
backup
okay.
generator. No, I don't think so.
Okay.
Okay.
That will definitely be a requirement of the permit, okay.
Yeah, we put that in the mitigation plan already, that there would need to be a generator backup in case the electricity was out. There's a big storm, you need to pump down, yeah.
The pumps, I might add that the pumps are not terribly old. They're in the 10 to 12-year-old business. They were replaced 10 to 12 years ago. They're good, big good pumps. They've been out of service approximately 2 years. So they do have to be refurbished, but there's every expectation that that will be a relatively minor job.
Right, I think our concern, and we'll go through other comments, is that if there's a major storm, you're going to lose power. So electric pumps, there needs to be an auxiliary generator, but that's okay.
Right. And the other trade-off, and the reason we wouldn't want to run them on a generator all the time is for noise concerns, so.
One other, so what you see here is, in this yellow tint, is the additional disturbance that we anticipate as a result of routing that discharge pipe under the road and down to the creek. And there's sort of, if you look at the contours closely, you'll see there's sort of a natural flow area here. The contours are such that it will take, that the water would flow there naturally once we got it across the road. We're putting in a riprap swale at the end of it, and just we were a little concerned that we have to run a new electric wire when we found out that it's already power there, it's already on, so we don't need a trench for the power, and we can use the same trench that we're using for the hydrant, so we don't need to do any further disturbance on that side of the road.
The condition of the dam is not premium. What's being done with that?
What's the question?
The dam.
It's
not in premium condition. Are you going to do refurbing it, or?
Let me make a digression. We'll go into that. I don't mean to cut you off, Lou, but I had asked, and Adam has brought somebody from Taconic Engineering. Our purview vis-a-vis the dam is really to focus on if the dam needs to be reconstructed or the dam is decommissioned. Our questions need to be focused on, is this mitigation plan going to work? And if it doesn't work, what backups will be done to change it? It's not our purview to deal with the dam itself. That is, whether we like it or not, that is a DEC issue, and it is being looked into.
It's wet.
Yes. So, I mean, that should be our concerns when we make comments. So what I'd like to do right now is, first, before I get board comments, what I'd like to do is explain to the public in a sentence or two, and if anybody wants to add to it from the board, please do, what our spirit of intent was in the changes that we asked from the applicants. And then we'll talk about what we'd like to see in a permit, and then we'll open it up for comments from the public. So essentially, we looked at this pond, and it's an artificial pond. Well, a lot of lakes and ponds are artificial, and they have various amounts of benefit. This one is probably of little value, but I'm going to say not no value, but why was it built in the first place? We had pretty much viewed that it was built for three prongs. One was it was a marshy area, so that it could drain the golf course. Two, most golf courses, I'm not a golfer though, want to have water features. And three, it's a water hole. It was used as a reservoir. We had decided that since the lake is now going to be 4 feet lower, that, why fight nature? Why not let part of it go back to what it was, which is a marshy area? So that's why we had decided, instead of focusing of putting emergent vegetation entirely along the shoreline, what is really more important is the northern end of that lake is going to end up being a marsh now. So let's get it to be a marsh. Let's get it to be healthy and functioning. And that's what their plan has done. So within the mitigation plan, I think we all have a bunch of comments and questions, but I think we've come a long way. You know, and I think that, I think we're probably almost there. So I'd like to hear from everybody on that from the board, of what other conditions we're looking for, what changes we'd like to see, and I shouldn't say so much changes, clarifications.
So we talked about kind of a monitoring and maintenance program, so that's been in place, right, was it for 5 years?
5 with 7 if
Five with seven if
necessary?
needed, yeah.
Yes.
And then what about, I don't know, some type of modification if for some reason we notice something going astray? How would, like, the need for, hey, this whole area here is not kind of working out properly, I don't know what might happen, but how do we revisit that to mitigate that? Because, you know, we're experimenting for some, you know, reasons here, and, you know, you never know what happens when you start to do that.
I think it's laid out in here.
Yeah, I think what's missing is, it's laid out, I think what we would need to put in a draft permit is there's certain details that are missing now. So, for instance, I had originally, until I heard you're using the pump house, I had questions vis-à-vis the pump, since you didn't, at the time, in the plan that we got from, I think it's May 28th, we're not talking about what type of pump. So now we're much closer on that. You know, what's missing is you'll need an auxiliary generator, which would need to be in it. That's fine, because what I was going to ask at that time, if you didn't know what type of pump, what would be the capacity that might be necessary in a drawdown, and what would be the flow, if necessary, that it could take out. So I think we're close to that. I think the draft permit should say what the size of these pumps are and what it can dissipate on that. Then where we talk about, it's sort of intermingled, and I'd rather myself see it separated, is both the management of invasives and survivability of the replantings. In terms of survivability of the plantings, we normally require 10% as loss, as acceptable. You have 15%, so that should be changed to 10%. The invasives, you know, you're hoping for an 85% success, 15% amount of invasives. That's sort of strange. I mean, the whole idea is you're trying as best as you can to remove invasives. So I'm not sure, and Max, you can jump in on this one. What would be the best way to quantify that?
Yeah, it's kind of a tough situation, because I think when I look at it, it's more from a perspective of overall success of the project, not necessarily meeting a percentage benchmark. And how do you quantify that in a written document that has a timeline to it?
Right.
You know, so I think that's where in a perfect world, this would go on in perpetuity, and there would constantly be someone monitoring and managing that area if needed. So how do we strike that balance in this mitigation plan that they're presenting? I think that's something the board should think about. And I guess, does the narrative they provided allude to that in some way?
Yeah, that's why I was asking for somewhat of a separation between plantings and basically removal of invasives. Also, and this is a more minor detail, if there is herbicide use, which the board is not against, that is a separate permit. That will become a separate permit.
Right, I think that's how we contemplated this, is that we would come
It's
back.
not mentioned
if we
in
need
there.
to.
It's almost mentioned, but I'd like to see that clearly called out.
I think that I believe is mentioned in the narrative, but I think that what's kind of ambiguous is like who decides and when do we say, you need to enact using a more aggressive method of removal. That's not really quantified. I don't know how we, whose responsibility is that, the town to inspect and say this is an unsuccessful project, or are we solely, relying on the annual report that they're proposing to put together for them to state that yes, we need to take this next step? So that's something that needs to be clarified.
So would that annual report be accompanied by a site visit by you, Max, annually?
Well, I think they propose 4 visits during the growing season to monitor regrowth of invasives and success of the plantings.
Those are 4 visits by you?
By their
Okay,
professional.
no, yeah, but I'm wondering if during this establishment phase of 5 years or 7 years, is that something that we, are you gonna commit to doing that every year,
I think we should figure out how to.
Make a decision with them?
Yeah, I guess, but I think that you probably want something formalized in writing saying that, because what if you don't agree with my representation of what's going on there? What if they push back? And say, no, we're not going to apply for the permit. How do we make sure that we're always on the same page, I guess, I think.
Because the idea is, for the mitigation, is to basically develop an emergent vegetation. It would be I guess it's the southeast side of the pond, and particularly a marshy area on the north side. So how do we basically make sure that the invasives, things like mugwort, are not encroaching upon it? And it's this. Unfortunately, it's not something we can totally have quantitative. It's somewhat going to be qualitative on that.
Right. I mean, I think that when we came in the first time with our proposal, it did not include removal of invasives outside of the planting area. And one of the things that we worked with the board together on was to say, okay, well, there's going to be a 10-foot buffer that will initially remove invasives and then help continue to remove them until the native plantings have established themselves, and we're, trying to choose plants that can vigorously compete with invasive species. And the goal is to get those plantings well established, so that they can continue to compete against the invasives, and hopefully, as time goes on, not need a lot of maintenance in order to, in terms of invasives removal, in order to keep the success of those plantings. But I think in terms of, when we make the assessment that herbicides might be needed, that can be written as a condition of the permit, that if herbicides are needed, you have to come back to the board to discuss how that's going to be applied.
Yeah, I mean, I think our concern is not so much the use of herbicides. Our concern is just making sure that what starts out as trying to establish a marsh and emergent plantings doesn't end up being overrun by invasives.
Right.
So again, I think this is something that, as we draft a permit, if that's what we decide to do, that can be written into it, that there's a little bit more detail. The other note I had, we had talked about testing for water quality. Again, it's vague. In my mind, and I could be wrong here, so please, board, correct me, because I know I brought it up. My intent on the water quality was not so much to test for contamination from herbicides. It was essentially, there was still going to be open water to make sure that we can have relatively healthy water that's, not covered with cyanobacter, blue-green algae, and what have you. So that we would want, you to hire a limnology firm to tell you what are probably the best tests you should be doing. Oxygenation, obviously, but there are a couple others. Right. So that's other detail that we would require that can be added.
We did put some in the monitoring and maintenance plan. I think it's the last paragraph of the text on page 11. We talk about.
Yeah, we're going to actually want to know once you have a full permit, what the tests are.
Right.
But I'm just letting you know that right now on that. If you end up using herbicides, we may want testing for that. I mean, that's what we asked for Voscapel. You know, they were using glyphosate, Roundup, and Tricopyr, and they require very, very different testing on that. But that would come about if you're using herbicides, and that would be either a separate permit or an addendum to this.
Since the, kind of the lowering of the water makes maybe potentially a warmer area that may be more likely to have that blue-green algae grow, could we specifically request to test for that? Like, collect some samples and see if that algae is growing at the level, I mean, might always be something there, but.
Yeah,
like,
there probably is right now. I mean,
but at
that.
the level that it's, like a risk or an issue.
So, I mean, and at that point, we could ask, again, that it be controlled if we feel it's hazardous.
I think something that, just flipping through this again, I think something that would be really beneficial on an annual, as part of your annual report, is for the following, work season, coming up with a kind of a work plan for your next growing season, what you'd tackle based on the report findings. I think if you did that for that 5-year period, that would be really helpful, so that we can get a summary of what you intend on tackling that next year. And that may be a really good way for us to look at a benchmark for different successes of the project too.
That makes a lot of sense.
And I don't know, I mean, I'm not quite sure, reading this, what the annual report would consist of, other than maybe photo points and there's like a canopy cover percentage, which I'm not sure how you'd quantify canopy cover on plugs that you're putting in. So maybe the monitoring protocol could shift a little bit. So I don't know, I don't know if you have like an example annual or report or a monitoring report that you want to submit as like an appendix, and we can just kind of make edits to it.
I was going to ask you the same thing.
I think
If there's an
what-
annual report that you like.
Yeah, I think what the intent was, and it should just be clarified a little bit, 10% is a great number to have, that's the success rate we want, but you could have, let's say we had a 100-acre plot that we're trying to reforest, and it's 10% success, right? Well, that's great, unless in that 100-acre plot you had 10 acres that are still not growing. So that's what I think they meant by canopy cover. So,
Distribution.
yeah, distribution.
I think it was
Right, I
just
think
another
that's
way of
what their
saying
intent
area,
was.
as opposed to individual plants, which is sometimes if you're doing a plan like this, you want to look at the survival. If you're planting shrubs,
Yeah.
you'd want to know that a certain percentage of the shrubs are surviving.
Yeah, if we can just throw your methodology in there and just say that this is what we're going to be doing every time we go out. I don't know if there's monitoring plots within that, or it's just going to be photo points, or how you're going to compare per each visit.
Maybe, as you pointed out, like if a whole area looks like this whole area is just kind of wiped out, even though the total is 10%, like that should be addressed, yeah.
If that's something, again, like that's found at the end of the season, and it can be addressed in the following year, like those are your takeaways of what you're going to tackle that following year. I think that'd be really important. So it's kind of a living management document.
I think the other thing that I think we might want to quantify just a little bit further is when you have major rain and you're pumping, what is it going to do to what's below the dam? Because that's probably, from a wildlife standpoint, a habitat standpoint, is probably the most valuable part of the situation. So that would be nice to have that documented, and what could be done in there.
What size discharge pipe, do you have an idea what size discharge pipe those pumps would have into the stream?
Do we know, Glenn? Or Margaret? I don't think we've gotten there yet.
Yeah.
We're gonna need that.
Yeah, so maybe leaning towards a larger, outlet so that it's kind of more of a sheet as opposed to like a water gun.
So we're going to be pumping, so it's not just a gravity-fed pipe. I have looked at,
We already went. We
we went
that
through it.
part, yes.
So
The question is
so
just
there
about
is,
the
like
volume.
when you come over, you go down a little, there's a flattened out area. That's where we're going to discharge. I've showed like a 15 feet length of velocity dissipator. We can make it longer. That will just bring it closer to the stream. So I can debate whether or not that's better, whether or not to have more riprap or to have the riprap and then let it go into the, weeds or grasses so that it slows down before it gets into the stream. So there's like a give and take there. And the pumps are really big pumps. We're not going to have to use even, half the capacity of the pumps. But we've spoken with the control panel people who put the control panel in about 10 years ago. They can retrofit it so that we can use it for this purpose. And so we're pretty confident that, we can move forward with.
So you could maybe lower the RPMs or, reduce the flow rate of the pump by
Yeah, so as long as we're within in the pump curve,
Yeah.
so we'll be
Good,
fine.
okay, that's helpful, yeah.
It's an emergency generator to keep it going. Where is that? So if the electricity goes out and the generator keeps it going, where is that generator located? In
Right,
the
so
pump house?
there's presently not a generator.
Right.
So we would put a generator close to the pump house in order
Okay.
to service that part. There's going to be a generator for other parts of the site too.
Yeah, that's what I figured, but I just wouldn't know if it was hooking up or something like that.
Other questions? And if you have any questions in regard to the dam, I believe there's somebody here from Taconic Engineering that did the report.
I do.
Okay.
With the plan you guys got is a great plan. But considering the condition of this dam, it's kind of like renovating a house on a crumbling foundation. Now, according to this dam report, it's unsound, deficiency recognized. There's an evacuation plan for the people below the dam in case something happens. Now, I don't know why the dam wasn't included in all of this, or isn't it, it's going to be an ingress and egress road for the place, right?
Right.
So if it's unsound and it's deficiency recognized and there's an evacuation plan for everything downstream, why aren't we dealing with the dam first, then put this great planning plan in effect? That's the part I'm having, I have issues with, for the people downstream, and also for the time that's going to be spent putting in all these really nice plantings and maintaining them and pumps and siphons. If the dam goes, it's going to be a mess downstream, for lack of a better word. And there's, the potential for, loss of life, loss of habitat. It's going to be a big mess. So I don't know why we're not addressing the dam.
So, the dam has been looked at starting before the theater project. And, the reason and we've been working with structural engineers to make sure that the dam is safe. I mean, the reason there's an emergency action plan is not because the dam's about to do anything. It's because it's a dam and it needs to have an emergency action.
And just it's pretty alarming, these reports. Now, I don't know if the public has had a chance to see these, but I wouldn't want to live downstream from that.
So
I have all these nice plantings wash over my house in case it goes. But I don't know. I'd like to see something done with the dam before all this planting is done. And also, it's a main ingress and egress out of the place. If it goes, it's going to be a big mess to clean up and to rectify when the time comes.
The dam is not going to go. I mean, we're working with an engineer to make sure that it's safe. That's the reason the water's been lowered. That's the reason trees were removed from the embankment. And so, we are working with DEC and the dam safety people at DEC to make sure that the dam is safe. The reason that engineering for the future of the dam, let's say, whether it's going to be rehabbed or decommissioned, has been that we were working with the planning board to figure out what the site plan was going to be, and there were different iterations of whether that road was going to continue to be used for ingress, egress. At one point, there was a plan to put a new bridge in. So those plans are in flux, and so the future of the dam was sort of put on hold until we could figure out what was happening with the planning board. Now that the site plan is nearing finality, it makes sense for the question of the dam to get picked back up. And that's what you saw in that letter that we sent, that Tectonic sent to DEC last week, saying here's where we are as a result of the planning process. We're going to pick up, and here's the timeline for us looking at the options. So what we've put in the letter that I submitted last week was that the water level in the pond is going to be what it is for the foreseeable future. So we've now committed to a mitigation plan that involves plantings, that involves the water at a certain level in the pond. And we've committed to making sure that that mitigation plan is a success. So that as we start looking at the dam and what's going to happen with the future of the dam, it will be important for HVSF to think about the mitigation in terms of options for what to do with the dam. And it may be that one option is better than another in order to make sure that we're not throwing away money on a mitigation plan, because we have committed to the plan as mitigation for the wetland buffer disturbance. So, I think going forward it is, this plan will now become, and this permit will now become part of the consideration of what happens with the dam, and there are different options for dealing with the dam.
If we have a huge storm event, like the kind that we've been having, and the pumps can't keep up with it, and that thing goes, it's going to be a mess. Now, right now, is it considered a floodplain down below because the dam is unsound? I mean, are people paying flood insurance now?
So and this is in the emergency plan, but it's so the dam is rated as an intermediate hazard. It's not a high hazard, and there are many dams in this area that are not rated at all. Like that aren't even under DEC. People who aren't working with DEC to ensure the safety of the dam. So it's not the highest level of need in terms of.
Well, if there's an evacuation plan in effect, that's kind of high, isn't it?
I don't have the number in front of me I might, in terms of the number of homes, but I don't think that there's any, even in this emergency action plan, there's no threat to life.
Why would you evacuate it?
There are inundation maps here on page 9 of the emergency action plan. But again, this is really not, all of this needs to happen whether or not this board issues a permit. And so, I don't want to leave you thinking and people out here thinking that things are unsafe, but it really does not have to do with the mitigation plan, the safety aspect of it.
I understand that. I just, as a public servant, I just feel uncomfortable approving something that's, if there's anything I can do to make this work. There's all the list of houses and people on here, on the thing. So are they paying a higher insurance now because of this? Or should they be getting insurance for just in case?
I don't know.
Okay. All right.
But I want to, rest assured, there's nothing in the permit that we're asking for or in the mitigation plan that would have any impact on the safety of the dam.
No, I understand that, and I agree with that, but I think it should have been in the plan. But that's just my personal opinion.
Okay.
I don't know how the rest of the board feels about that.
Well, I think you bring up a pretty valid point. I mean, the condition of the dam ended up here in a report in our email, and an unsound structure is an unsound structure. Whether you get rid of the water or the trees, it's still unsound, and it's actually not a dam, it's a roadway. I don't know if it's a roadway first or a dam second or whatever, but it is a road, and it's deemed this, and they have come up with plans to do something. And you bring up a good point about, well, not a good point, but I don't understand why you all have known about this, and we're just going to deal with it the minute you guys approve everything. Once everything's approved, then we'll put things in place. And this letter dated May 5th says, with the checkpoint of what the DEC told you all to do, or what the DEC says what to do with this, right? You had an inspection in 2022 done. Well, this is 2 years later. But you also have that it could be, you might decommission it in 2025. That's just next year. So I think Tony brings up a valid point about why are we doing all of this when next year you might decommission this whole thing, because and then again, you've spent tens of thousands of dollars on this, it's decommissioning, then you're back here again with us to get another wetland thing because you want to build the bridge maybe that you all originally wanted to do. So we know plans already exist of what you want to do. So like it or not, that is here, and it is kind of a fine line, that what is under the dam is part of the Conservation Board and what they have to take into account. And I think it's a valid thing to consider, seeing that you might decommission in 25. I also think that because of this, I don't think a 7-year plan is long enough. I think a wetland inspector or this, you have a 5 to 7 year plan for inspection. I think it should be longer than that. I don't think 7 years is long enough. And this is a 20-year build-out, 20 years. Many of us might not be on this board in 20 years. And Max, you said something important that, we have to think about this phase 3. We have to think about, the totality of this, the weight of all of this and how it affects in all the different ways. So I will have to say 7 is an adequate amount of time. And I think that yearly reports on the soil testing and the water testing for erosion purposes as well is necessary. And but I have another question, not related to the dam, but if someone else wants to talk about the dam or anything.
I just wanted to.
I'm
clarify that
assuming-
there's no universe in which the dam would be just decommissioned in 2025. There's an engineering study that needs to be done in 2025. Decommissioning is one option. But then
What it says on
it doesn't say that
piece
on
of
there.
paper.
Yeah, I was sort of assuming that decommissioning is maybe not the best word, that probably what was going to end up is the dam would stay where it is because it has the roadway on it, and the the pond would be maintained at the lower level in perpetuity. Maybe it would require, instead of pumping at a certain point, of putting in a culvert, which would be a more natural situation, but that's sort of what I assumed. If you look at the DEC, I think it's the New York DEC info mapper, you look at dams in Putnam County and across the river in Orange County, most of the private dams are intermediate or worse. It's just they're old, and when they say an intermediate hazard or a high hazard is when it's usually a much higher dam and there are houses in a village underneath it. This is an intermediate hazard because there's a road that can be partially washed out and so on. I mean, this is unfortunately not common, but something has been done right now to remediate it. Am I in love myself with that there's not a plan in place before we're doing this mitigation? No, but I think that can be built in the permit too, that if there's any changes, this permit is going to change. And something tells me that there is going to be the semblance of a plan for the dam before a lot of this work begins. 2025 is not very far away. So I don't know if that makes anybody feel better, but that's sort of how I was looking at this.
Well, we're not here to discuss the other dams in town. We're here to discuss this one. So it doesn't matter what else is going on, because that's not what we're here to discuss. And I just want to say, that was my interpretation when they say review potential decommissioning of dam in 2025.
That's a review.
That, I understand that, but that was my interpretation of what it meant to review, was that it's a possibility that they might decommission. I just want to make clear what my interpretation of that line was.
I understand. I just wanted to clarify that it will not be a physical decommissioning.
Okay, so you're just going to review it in 2025. So again, but yeah, it is frightening when you read the DEC report that says unfound deficiency recognized, and to complete all these things, knowing it's a major roadway. It's not a dam, it's a major roadway into the thing. But anyway, I think the condition of the mitigation has to be way longer than 7 years.
Okay.
That is not wrong.
We can add that. I'm not going to argue that. Do we have other comments, whether on the dam or other things we'd like to see in a permit from the board? Okay, then what I'd like to do is open it up for public comment. Please focus on the mitigation plan and what we're talking about here. Our purview has nothing to do with site approval for Hudson Valley Shakespeare. It is just focusing on this plan. Thank you. And please let us know who you are.
Okay, hang on. Chairman Gowler, I'm Rhonda Donahue. We corresponded earlier today. I am sad that I didn't get to read all the things that you have read, which is how it works for us to comment. I am so sorry. One of my favorite people on earth is in this room, your secretary, and she let us know that this material was not available Friday afternoon, and we didn't get it until today. So I would love to comment better. I've learned a lot listening to your conversation. I think you're a fantastic board. Thank you for your service. But we didn't get to read all this. The new website is wreaking havoc. And the other thing I wanted to do was to look at the DEIS, the draft environmental impact statement, and then the final environmental impact statement, and compare it with what is on these plans. All of them don't pertain because some of this stuff postdates that. But I couldn't. Cheryl, am I wrong? Are those not up on the website? There are no old documents up there.
They're still migrating everything over.
They're not there. We couldn't look at them.
But they,
It was there until Friday, and then there was a.
No, I'm sorry. Just listen to me. The DEIS, the draft environmental impact statement, and the final environmental impact statement are not on Philipstown.com. We cannot look at, I have these paper copies because Cheryl sent them to my colleague. So I just want you to know that I'm a plants woman, those are plant people, we're not housewives of Philipstown. And we want to talk to you about this.
But that's the case from Friday to
Right.
today, right?
It's
That's not, that hasn't been, the documents have been up on the
they've been on the
website.
planning board website.
Just to be clear,
Yeah.
that they have been on the website.
I've been checking. I've been getting errors. Do you want the timestamps of the screenshots?
No, the bottom line is,
Not at all.
I had a long conversation with the town council today.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so
Please talk to me
essentially,
about that.
as long as the documents were posted in a timely manner, and these are mainly planning board documents, some of them are ours, they
I
were
was
posted
overlooking yours.
before there was a migration on the website. So, in terms of, I'm sensitive to your concern, but I have no legal authority to hold open a public hearing for that reason, because they were available.
So that if you don't look at the right time, you're screwed. I mean, that's
It's
kind of what
unfortunately
happened
the
to me, sir.
migration, just did not
Horrible.
happen at the best time, but, in essence, they were available for weeks, often months ahead of time.
I'm
So-
sorry, what? That's not true, hon. They didn't even submit them to the 28th of May.
That was the latest plan.
This
Well, okay.
document, just
Yeah.
this document.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. And so, thank you. It's just making me feel crazy. Was going on error 404, going on privacy error, going on looking and knowing that they would come eventually, but I got them today. So that is a drag. I will do my best, having learned a lot from your conversation, and thank you very much. I also would like to say to you, sir, that heartfelt, this is the best part of the whole damn project. Now, I do have one issue, and that is like Mr. Bardis. That dam has been a factor. It's why the bridge was invented. I've been following this project for 4 years. I know you hate me. But the dam has been a factor the whole time. So it's confusing to me why it seems to me, and if I'm wrong, please help me understand, that the applicant decided to deal with the mitigation of the wetland before dealing with the, I'm just going to use a lay word, risky dam, okay? Not super risky, not low risky, medium risky, just risky dam. That seems to me to be a little crazy, because we've lived through Hurricane Ida and Hurricane Irene, in which that exact pond was a mess, and none of those plants would have survived. And those are awesome pumps, by the way. That was a great idea, because I've spent a lot of time on that golf course playing golf. So is that correct? Did the applicant make this choice, or does it have something to do with the DEC? I'm just mixed up.
What?
The choice of fixing the dam first or fixing the plants first?
The DEC focuses with dams,
Okay?
okay?
Gotcha.
The mitigation is our
Separate?
purview. It is separate.
Separate, okay. And so you, the Conservation Board, I mean, all of y'all, will not be involved with the mitigation of the dam. Is that right?
Well, it's not a mitigation. It would be either a repair or a decommissioning.
Okay,
We are not. Often what happens is, and we've had this before, where the engineers have come in front of us more as a courtesy, because dams are, it's not home rule. The DEC takes care of that.
so the resulting landscape when the dam is changed, okay, improved or whatever happens to it, okay, is the resulting landscape again your purview? I'm just getting a little
Yes, it is,
confused.
and the way we're planning to draft a permit, if we all agree to grant a permit, would be that changes to the dam would have to maintain the mitigations that were done. And if, for some reason, the applicant came back and said, we want to make changes, we would go through another process of having another wetland application and a mitigation plan, which I'm not so sure they would want to do. I think they would want to basically change the dam so the mitigation they've done would pretty much stay intact with minor modifications.
Got that.
And I
That
think
makes
that's very
sense to me,
doable.
because what we're looking at here is kind of upland, and the dam kind of goes, down geographically, altitudinally down. It seems to me like the change of the dam might create a new wetland situation, or it's mushy down there. You go
Well,
look for your
that's-
golf ball, you're
That's the remnants of a stream.
right.
And it seems to flow most of the year. There's some stream,
Right.
and I think that essentially that any, I believe that any dam engineer that, has in their mind, we're basically not going to refill this pond.
Right.
We're going to leave it at that level.
Right.
It's just going to be an engineering solution. Are they going to continue to pump? Possibly. I think an engineer
You mean
would.
like maybe it'll just be like a creek?
Exactly.
Okay.
That's what we just talked about. They probably would put in a culvert, but that's.
Okay,
it's
I didn't
not our
know that
pur-
meant creek.
Right, it's
Okay.
not our purview right now, and that
Gotcha.
would be either
So
an
they'll
amendment. to-
decide, and then y'all have to fix the mess or whatever.
I'd like to
Kinda.
think there won't be a mess,
Okay.
yes,
Okay, well, whatever results.
yes.
All right. Well, because I cannot make a good comment because I didn't have material, I do want to say one thing. It is always useful to go back at and look at the history, because this has been a long, long, long project. And I cannot look at the final environmental impact statement on philipstown.com. That's correct, right, Cheryl? Right, can't do it.
Well, it was available, yes, I can't,
No, sir, it wasn't. It hasn't been uploaded yet.
yeah. It's also, yeah, it's all,
Last week and before that, just
Yeah.
as of yesterday, the DEIS was
So why were we getting so many errors last week? I'm so confused.
Can I don't want this to go
No, no,
on
it's
all.
okay.
We've got a time
Yeah,
balance,
I-
and also comments are just supposed to come to us.
I have been following this project, downloading documents, reading them for
I get
years.
it, I get it. I don't want to cut you off,
No,
but.
it's fine.
But essentially, all these documents are also available to be had in person.
Yes, sir, I know.
So-
You know, going to work does get in the way.
I understand that.
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
all again.
Thank you. Do we have other comments?
Hi, my name is Tim Nolan. I live in Garrison. I touched base with you today, Chairman Guller, on the same issue of availability. The fact that the documents were there a month ago, terrific. The way I operate for meetings like this is when they roll up on the calendar, I look for the material. I looked for the material on Friday afternoon. Nothing. I sent Cheryl a note and I said, what's wrong? There's no agenda and there's no materials for the public meeting on Tuesday night. Cheryl sent me back a note. She said there were problems with the files. So far, so good. I don't want to misrepresent anything. I was unable to get the files. Cheryl sent me the files personally so that I was actually able to look at them. So I'm probably a step ahead of the rest of the community in having the stuff that was supposed to be intelligent about tonight prior to this afternoon. If that works for you.
I understand, but what I want here now, what the Conservation Board wants, is comments about this mitigation plan.
Right, and they would like intelligent comments. And had the materials been available sooner, the comments might be more intelligent.
Okay, we've heard that.
Okay. I too believe that this is the best part of this entire project. It might be the only asset that the community is going to realize from this project. But if this comes off, if this plan comes off for reworking the pond and the west side, especially, I think, of the roadway, of the dam, that it could be a terrific, terrific thing because the landforms are really, really there for this. That's a lovely little stream that coils down in there. The pond is not that tough a project compared to some of the other ones that I've looked at because the golf course mowing practices really did confine the invasives in a way that they wouldn't be if it was a woodsier environment. I think it's got a real shot. I also think that you're putting the cart before the horse by, Mr. Bart has put it well, I'll put it slightly differently. Don't garland up the tub until you know what the plug is going to do. And you don't know. And however it might be phrased, what it says here is that he left his glasses over there.
Can I just say something?
Thank you.
We're following a process. The dam's not really part of our purview. Let me say something. The dam's not part of our purview. We're following a process of what's in our purview, which is, this mitigation plan, which seems like the public likes the mitigation plan. So we're trying to do that, right? And we're following through the process. It's another department, another group's responsibility for the dam. We're not focused on that. So I don't understand the comments. I know about the documents. That's, unfortunate. Was the announcement that the website was migrating made public or no?
The fact, whether we like it or not, the fact that the documents were previously available is all that's required under New York State law.
I get it. There's an end to that road. I get it. But it does say here that you're creating a mitigation plan that may be based on a fiction. okay? Because the dam may be commissioned, this is what it says. You know, we're going to obsess about these documents and whether we have them and whether we don't. And now we're,
I'm going to make a comment on that. I mean, if you were listening to some of the stipulations that we were going to put in a draft plan, was essentially that whatever would be done to the dam, even though it's out of our purview, the wetland permit would be written in such a way that they would have to come back to us if the dam were changed so those mitigations, so the water level could not remain as it is at this 4-foot lower level. So in our sense, while the dam is not part of our purview, we're protecting the mitigations that are being done, and basically we're asking that when a dam plan is put in place, that there is going to be an engineering solution that will maintain this mitigation.
is there a consensus on the fact that there's a problem with the dam?
This is not our purview.
It's not what I asked you.
It's not our, unfortunately or fortunately, it's not our purview whatsoever. I mean, basically, the applicant has hired an engineering firm that has a long history in being experts on dams, which is a good sign because there are a lot of dams that don't have that. Would it be great to have a solution right now? Perhaps, but it takes time to evolve.
It says that the future rehabilitation of the dam is part of the no action condition, meaning that some action will need to be taken with respect to the dam in coordination with the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation, whether or not the proposed HVSF project is built. That sounds like there's a consensus that there's a problem with the dam. It makes sense to cure the problem with the dam,
It's not,
which is...
I get it. Unfortunately, this is not our purview. It is the state. They override
Who should I be
us.
speaking to about this?
What's that?
Who should I be speaking to about
Max,
this?
what is it?
Is this a town
It's the
board
department.
issue?
There's a DEC, Department of Dams.
It's not a planning board or a town
No,
board
it
or a
is- it
conservation
is
board
state.
issue. This is not a home rule issue.
No, it's not a home rule. Does somebody have the DEC letter in front of them? Because we can tell you exactly.
I'm just trying to understand.
Yeah, it's specifically, it is one of the few areas that is not a home rule issue whatsoever.
I get that that could be a possibility.
Helen has it.
But it isn't.
So what you would want to contact the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation, the Division of Water, Bureau of Flood Protection and Dam Safety.
I know, for a major.
In terms of planning the balance of this project, there's more going on there, as a few people have pointed out, than simply a dam. It's also a key road in and out of the joint, right?
Agreed. Again, unfortunately, this is not our purview. This is the planning board and in regards to the DEC, their division.
Okay. Is there any way that you can convey your concern to the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation? Is that appropriate?
I don't think it is, quite frankly.
No, I think
because
you can.
You
if
can,
you
you
choose
can as a
to.
private citizen.
I
This has,
don't have the throw weight that you do.
this is, the bottom line is, it's been documented that there's a problem,
Thank you.
right?
That's the first thing I
Well,
want.
it's
It's
been
been-
rated by the DEC.
It's been
The
rated
dam's
and
been
most
rated.
likely.
Good. So we do
Okay,
have consensus
hold
on
on,
that.
let me speak. It's been rated because most likely, and I'm sure the applicants can confirm this, they probably reached out to the DEC. It wasn't the other way around to have them look at this structure.
This goes back to 2021, doesn't it? Yeah, this is prior to the project. The
But-
assessment.
What's that?
The assessment of the dam is prior to the.
That doesn't mean anything. If you're a landowner and you have a dam on your property,
Says it right here.
right?
Yep.
You would, on the whole, probably want to protect your investment. So if you had the wherewithal, and I don't know, but I have a feeling it was the applicant that reached out to the DEC. Probably the way they did it is they hired an engineering firm to assess the dam, and that's where this all came into place. Again, though, it's not part of our purview. I think it's a good sign that this has happened, that the dam has been evaluated, and that something will be done. Okay?
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments?
I just want to thank you. I'm not familiar with your board, but you've been wonderful. Tony, I thought your comments were spot on, because when I've been involved with this project, I went around and talked to neighbors, and there's a family below that dam. And the gentleman said he was concerned every time they changed the water, it made a difference. He's got a couple little kids, so thank you. And thank you all for your diligence. Much appreciated.
Thank you. Are there any other public comments? I would love to have a motion to close the public hearing.
That's right, I'm gonna make a comment about the website, but after you.
So moved.
Second? All in favor? Aye. Okay. Are we comfortable beginning drafting a conditional permit?
Can we enumerate the points
Yes,
that
we're
we
going
talked
to
about?
enumerate
Yeah.
every single point. I would suggest that we do draft a conditional permit. Otherwise, there is a calendar that is really very overdue on the planning board of making a site approval, yes or no, on this project. And without a conditional permit at least, or the intent thereof, it's going to become somewhat problematic for the planning board. So,
So we're voting on it tonight and doing a condition tonight?
So
I would-
just have one question. So, and I agree with the path forward that you mentioned, but in addition to that, would a memo to the planning board indicating that we had a lot of concern about the dam be appropriate? Even though that's outside of our purview, to send it to the planning board just so that they're
we
aware?
can put that in there. I mean, I think what would be more constructive is that within the permit, that we have great concerns about the dam, and that one of the conditions of the permit is that future plans for, we're not using
The dam
decommissioning,
condition.
for the condition of the dam will be mitigated both on safety, which is not our purview, and on maintaining the status quo of the mitigation we approved. Otherwise, the applicants would need to come back in and start the permit process.
And the metric would be water level, that the water level stays the
It would be,
same?
I think the basic is the water level. I think that's the easiest. It's basically a very quantitative measure, which I think is needed here.
Yeah, I think that would be helpful.
It's not our purview, in terms of it being used for a road, it is really not our purview whether we like it or not. What's the traffic, what's the loads, and so on.
There's other groups that do that.
Yeah.
But, okay, so my point about saying an unsound structure is an unsound structure regardless of trees and water. It is just an unsound structure. It has no bearing with us whatsoever. So we write to the planning board, hey, this is an unsound structure, look into this, or add it
Yeah,
in.
well, I believe that the planning board is well aware that this is a structure that is suspect.
Because, right.
Well, it's
because
been
a-
rated
Yeah,
by the
it's
DEC, so
been-
they probably have that document.
I've
I
never
can't
seen
say
it in
for-
any planning board document. This DEC report, I've never seen it till this conservation board, because I too have been watching this process. I have never
So,
seen this as
Well, we can
part.
find that
Yeah.
out. That's
I mean,
fairly
there-
easy
there's
for us to
nothing-
What I'm
find
trying to
out.
say is,
Right.
you know, the
There's
planning board
nothing
has to-
wrong that we could send a
say
short
it's
memo.
and it's not safe.
Okay, we could send a short memo that essentially, that if we're gonna give them a draft permit, a conditional permit, that, we can send a memo with it that, we are concerned on the condition of the dam from the DEC reports, and that should be taken into consideration. And what we'll have within our draft permit, I believe, is that an engineering solution will need to come up that is going to maintain the mitigations that we have approved. And I think that covers both the safety and restoring an area that I think here we're truly making this area better than what it was,
Agreed.
both at the existing level and even when the pond was full. You know, I think that's a win-win on that.
As far as the public hearing getting closed, can we close the public hearing but then leave room open for comment for people that didn't get a chance to read the document? How does that work?
Yes,
I'm not
people,
sure.
yeah, I mean, people can send us comments. I mean, we occasionally get correspondence of different sorts, you know.
You know, so the public doesn't feel like they're getting shut out of something
Yeah.
because of a
Yeah.
glitch on the website or whatever, not the point, you know. So
Yes.
so we can satisfy the public's concerns, you know, for that.
So, I mean, are most of us comfortable with putting together a conditional permit?
I am.
I mean, I know I am. I mean,
Yeah. I mean, just for reference, there's a classification on the DEC's website for the dam ratings for Class B intermediate hazard. It's public knowledge available on the DEC website, so you could read what the classification is.
I know, but the dam is the road. That's my only problem. My sticking point is this, and it never was until,
I appreciate your concern with the road that leads, the egress that leads out of the property being on the dam structure.
the dam is a road.
But the rating that the DEC gave the dam says that the dam is not fit for purpose as a dam. It does not say that it's not fit for purpose as a road. We don't have any, and I'm not saying it is, I'm just saying there's no evidence in that letter
Right.
that says that it's not fit as a road. So I just think we need to be clear on that. We just don't have the information.
Okay, so if
So-
we got rid of the dam, the road would just still stand there? So the road right now is the road. And we can come in tomorrow with a wrecking ball and get rid of the dam and the road's still gonna be
No,
there?
they would
Because
have
the
to.
dam is a road.
No, but they'd have to change the plan, sure, and that's why Andy is saying that if something like that happens, then the permit changes, the conditions
Right.
of our permit change, and we,
Well, what I'm saying is I just don't agree with your logic on it, because I think that the dam is the road. It's one structure.
but
So even though they're
I
stretching
agree.
the
I'm
dam,
not
you
gonna
can't
argue
have a
with you.
road without the dam
Okay,
as
but-
it is right
but we're
now.
also not responsible for the road.
it's not our purview.
Yeah.
It is absolutely
we're
not
not-
our purview.
We
I
don't
know
have
it
that.
isn't, but what's
So-
underneath is.
But it's not our purview, as I said. I am not against putting a memo together that we have a concern on the condition of the dam
Yeah.
and the roadway. That's fine. But at the same time, personally what I'm seeing, what I'm hearing from people in the audience is the mitigation plan is a win situation. And
That's the feedback we got.
and I truly believe, and I think a lot of the board feels that, I think that we should use this as a win situation, develop right now points that we want in a conditional permit, and hopefully vote on it tonight. And we'll put together a memo on our concerns on the dam as well. And I think that we will then have accomplished everything that needs to be done and done it well.
If the memo says that the dam is the road and the road is the dam and does not separate the two, I'm okay with that.
Well,
But
that's what it is. That's how it exists physically.
But because she made the thing saying it's just a dam and not a road, because they only
The
No,
classification.
no,
took
no,
care of
I
the
didn't
dam
say it
and
was.
not the road.
Classification
The
is just for dams,
classification is
so
about
that's
the
the
dam,
reason why
that's
it's
what I'm
based that
saying.
way.
Right, but we're on top of the dam. The
Yeah,
road
no,
is the
I-
top of the dam. I mean,
And there's other
it's the
dams,
same
you know,
thing.
Croton Dam has got a
Yeah.
road on top of it too.
Yeah.
But this
But we're only
classification
talking about the-
that's
Is
on the
about the
DEC
dam.
website is a
Right,
dam. It
that's
doesn't-
my-
I don't know
That's
why.
my point.
You know, I'll be honest, I have some sort of morally thing for some reason, because it says that it's unsound, and we're putting in construction vehicles, we put in 500 cars every day,
I
we're
get
putting
it,
in
Madeline, but it's not-
buses of people.
It's not our purview.
I know, and
Okay.
but that's why I said, I somehow feel
Okay.
it's this, I don't know, it changed everything when I put
Okay.
this note.
Let's go through the exercise right now of developing a conditional permit. I'm not necessarily going in the most rational order, but one of the conditions is we want a little bit more information on the details on the pump in terms of what its the pumps, what their capacities are, and that it is also going to be required to be maintained properly, and there will be auxiliary power to it, meaning a generator.
And how the water is released on the outlets.
Yes, and where the water, which Glenn began to show us a plan for that. Some more detail should be put into that with thought of when there is a heavy discharge that we're not destroying the stream that exists there. And I think that's very, very doable.
Yeah, Margaret mentioned the runway of
Yep.
riprap and all that.
Yep.
That whole part of it would be there.
We wanted to separate the survivability versus controlling invasives. And we wanted a 10% rather than 15% as the maximum loss. We also, there was a mention, they were talking about a canopy. I was interpreting that, again, the example I used with a 100-acre forest that was being replanted, that we should make sure that within the 10%, it's, on top of being quantified, it's qualified, that if we have a large area in one spot, that might be 9%, that it's somewhat problematic, and that would be taken care of. Correct with that? Invasives, and I'd like you to jump in on this, Max. Invasives, we've never really quite quantified it in terms of, well, 15% invasives is okay. The whole idea is to try to get rid of as much as you can with as little destruction of soil, use of chemicals, etc. I think it really, the control of invasives really sort of then circles back to we want to have the replanting so they're aggressive enough to prevent invasive control as being a problem.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that's very much what's done. I don't love the term meadow restoration in this area, but when they're putting in a meadow, the idea is to try to use plants that are opportunist enough, that are natives, that will outcompete.
What about saying a commitment to manage invasives throughout the lifespan of the monitoring maintenance plan?
That sounds upright. I mean, because it's more qualitative than quantitative in terms of a metric.
It is.
Yeah.
In terms of mitigation, what exists in the plan now was 5 years with a potential of 2 years additional. People had asked for it to be longer. I think that probably makes sense, and part of it, I think, has to do with success as well as right now what's in the positive secret declaration is they're talking about a 20-year build-out. So
20 years is...
Yeah, 20 years is a long time. I think that, but I don't think that there would be anything wrong with having a 5-year plan and then 2-year increments. And if success is reached at a certain point, we're
So
good.
kind of re-upping it
Yeah.
if there
Yeah.
is an issue
Yep.
that needs to be...
Yep.
Can we start at 7 and re-up from there?
Yeah, we could start at 7.
And then re-up every 2 years?
Yeah. And
So are we saying that they'll have some sort of a report every 2 years up to 20 years? Is it
No,
after
I
the
don't,
7th
I think that's unreasonable at
excessive.
this point. I think what it is I think we should do a 7-year mitigation plan. And then essentially, if success is reached, we have a major success at 5 years, we might not need to continue.
So it's at Max's discretion.
Yeah.
So it's 7 plus, whoever the wetland is.
Right.
Okay.
Does that make sense for you?
Yeah, it does. I would want 20 years because it's a 20-year build-out, but I know that won't
Well,
make much sense to you.
it's
so I
also,
don't
at a
know.
certain point, you know,
Well-
again, we don't have a full stormwater management plan because it's not reasonable to do that at this point in time. Could that affect what's being done here? Yes, but I believe that the planning board would be coming back to us with that, of how that would need to be handled. In terms of the dam, I think there needs to be a stipulation that whatever changes or repairs are done to the dam, that it is designed that this mitigation plan will stay intact. Otherwise, they will need to come back
For a new permit.
for a new permit.
I think you need to add a clause about, like, maintaining the optimum level of the water as a metric, some kind of, you know, because, I mean, that's really the whole basis for the marsh area and everything.
I think that's very good, that essentially that, you know, this plan is predicated on the 4-foot lowering of the water.
So maintaining the hydrology at this agreed upon point.
Exactly. And having,
What is the agreed upon point?
What's ever presented in this plan in terms of the
So
planting
just
areas.
the
and
4 feet or?
yeah, it's the
The
4
4-foot
feet.
drawdown.
And that should also, when we're talking about the pumping, go into that the pumping needs to be able to rapidly maintain.
Because we don't know how deep it is, right? We just know they drew down 4 feet, but we don't know the depth of it, do we?
There were
yeah.
some rudimentary soundings done,
Yeah.
okay.
yeah, which I think is enough for this.
I think the point of the hydrology is that the hydrology should be maintained to allow for the success of what they're proposing now in perpetuity.
Let me ask you a quick question, Max. So this is classified as a trout stream. Does it matter the depth? So if it's just a marshy or a little tiny trickle or a little creek, does it still say classified a trout stream? Does it matter?
classified as a trout stream?
I think it is.
I don't believe it is.
It is. Yeah, it is.
I think Phillips.
You're talking about Phillips Brook,
Phillips
you're not
Brook
talking about
is.
this pond.
Yeah.
No, I'm talking about the whole going down.
You're talking about
Well, I,
Phillips Brook.
Yeah.
no, well, I
Trout
called the
stream.
DEC about this. I called the water woman about this. I don't have my notes with me, but she said it was a trout stream.
I don't know. I don't have the classification.
I'll have to
I thought we said that early on one of the other meetings, but I could be.
But Phillips Brook is.
I know
You're right
that
with
is,
that, yeah.
but I talked to
Well,
the woman.
if this is a stream that's rated any higher than a C, and it's a C rating plus with a trout modifier, then the DEC would need to be involved in any of the decision making in terms of permitting. So I don't know if that has been checked.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, not the pond.
So we can put that as a condition too, that's fine to just,
No, I was just wondering, I mean,
Okay.
it just came to me.
and then the last thing I had on my list is we wanted, water quality testing of what's existing now of the open water.
Right, and it
And
would be
yearly, what would that, if that's part of the annual?
Yeah, I
report?
think that should be done, I believe there should be a baseline and then yearly
Can we add soil testing to that too, since they're
for,
removing?
Why?
Because
why?
Because they're removing all that soil,
Well,
the
that's already
soil
in the plan,
patches.
that basically,
for the
they're removing
greens?
contaminated soil.
Yeah.
It's been tested.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, but I meant afterwards, make sure they get rid of it, just like, no, okay, that's fine.
That's part of that part of it.
Yeah, it is part of it.
Okay,
Yeah, that's
Just on
different.
that point, there was a memo from AKRF that came out today, I believe, reviewing the soils management plan, which you got a copy of. One of their comments was to ensure that there is endpoint testing on the removal of the greens mitigation, and the applicant has agreed to that. So there will be endpoint sampling.
That's the same standard that we
Yeah.
put the
Yep.
HHLT to, I think.
And actually,
Boscoville,
Yeah.
And
I have Boscoville's permit. So
the,
they have to do
the last thing we
Before
discussed,
you go off the testing, I just wanted to add, if blue-green algae is found, that they test it and kind of quantify it and just deal with that. Yeah.
and it should, if there is blue-green algae or some other noxious component found, that it's controlled, which I think is fair. And this goes back to, there is a a basic plan that Glenn and Margaret were showing for overflow management using the pumps. There should just be, going back, that should be a stipulation that we're not basically destroying the habitat downstream. And I think that really,
And that they are going to install a generator
yeah,
to keep
we
the pump.
went through that, yeah.
okay,
So
sorry,
I think
missed
that covers it. So Max, you and I have a lot of points to
I have a couple-
put together.
I have something else. The separate permit for the herbicide, because on page 8, it just kind of sounds like they're allowed to have, that it's part of it. That it's not a separate permit if you're going to do a herbicide.
I think that's fine. I mean, it has to be a separate permit, but if
But it
everybody's
has-
more
right.
comfortable making it as a stipulation, any chemical management
Yeah.
it will require. I think that's totally fine.
Right, with like a 5-day, but I'm sure that's going to be on the
Yeah,
permit.
that's a separate permit.
And then I
totally.
have a question for you, Max. It says that in their mitigation on pay, any removal of species and all of that, that they tell the wetland inspector gives them 48 hours to commence any work. Are you comfortable with 48 hours, or do you need more time?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Clarification. Max is the natural resource officer.
Natural resource.
Who
I'm sorry.
has been
I'm
elevated
sorry.
from,
It's, I just say, because they say the town, they wrote the town wetland inspector.
It's
I'm
fine.
just reading what they wrote. That's-
anything else anybody would like to add?
I think I just want clarification at the board, that these are the points that we're agreeing upon, and Andy and I can refine them with the applicant, because
Yep.
the testing is a little bit nebulous, I feel
Yeah,
like.
we're gonna have to find out what ideal testing is.
Yeah, and especially if, we're just looking at general water quality characteristics before and after planting, I'm not really sure,
I think, to be less onerous, I think it's essentially making sure there's not eutrophication process. I think that's what needs to be in there,
okay.
because I don't
So then
believe-
I guess my thought is, if we do see nutrient levels skyrocketing in some strange scenario, what, at that point?
I think the best thing would be then it would require lake management. And I think what the lake management is, I'm sure there's some fish in there. I think it's not so much management of a fishery, it's more for amphibians. Reptiles and amphibians, yep.
And then will you be sending all that to us so we can see it? I mean, how do we?
Yeah, you can make
Okay.
comments on it, so if there's something we've missed or corrected. But I think that sounds acceptable to the applicants?
Yes, thank you. I think that's consistent with everything we talked about.
All right, with that said, do I have a motion to put together a conditional permit?
So moved.
I can't make it. Second?
I'll second that.
All in favor? Aye.
Because it is.
Against?
It can be changed.
Or abstentions?
You can abstain.
I didn't. I reluctantly put my hand up.
Okay.
So
And Lou?
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Oh, you know
So, can I just say one thing? I mean, I
that?
think
was going
it's
to.
important that
I
we,
didn't want to be the only one.
I think it's important that we all stay focused on, the CB is only one part of this process, and we just really have to stay focused on what our purview is and what our role is. It's frustrating, but we have to trust in the process. I mean, there are other boards, we have the town, we have the government, the DEC, so it's one part of it, so.
No one has seen it. This has never been seen before, so I
We
feel.
will put together a simple memo.
Make sure that's true.
Yeah, I will put together a memo on that and share it with everybody.
How can you make sure?
Anyway.
Because I've seen all the documents that have been posted.
All right, with that said, do we have any other business? No. Okay, then I need another.
Jason had something he wanted to say.
Jason?
Just because the new town website was brought up a number of times today, as we all know, Cheryl does an excellent job as a secretary. Other boards, the town of Philipstown launched a new website on Friday. It has been an effort about a year and a half in the making. As you all know, we are not the most tech forward community. That's why seeing a PowerPoint up on these screens tonight was amazing. But I guess my saying would be this is that there will probably be more. One thing I'll ask the town clerk to make that public announcement that that website was launched. If anybody notices any problems with the town website, to alert the town clerk. But I would also say that I would imagine there will be a few more glitches because it's a lot of historical information documents to load over to the new town website. So I'm sorry if it caused anybody frustration and inconvenience, and we'll try to get the word out a little bit better.
Jason, before you leave, so, I mean, if it was a year and a half in the making, why wouldn't we make a public announcement that we're changing the websites? I mean, I'm just saying, like,
Yeah.
I mean, it's just a learning, exercise here. But like, I mean, those type of things. I mean, routinely companies post, "Hey, we're having maintenance on the website," or "We're migrating a new
Yes.
system," and this announcement. So.
Yeah, so it's a good question. I mean, maybe there was the hope that there would be a migration without any challenges, but as you'd imagine, there's not much of a deep back end to this, so it's actually a bunch of volunteers have stepped forward. But I'll make that comment and try to.
Yeah, just fair enough. Yeah.
But for the record, on Friday, our agenda packet was not online. Our agenda packet was not online on Friday.
It was up.
Yeah, that's what, yeah, exactly. This information for HVSF was not up. The agenda was up.
The latest revision
Yes.
of this document
Yes.
wasn't up.
And did we
Yes.
have to close the meeting too?
Yes, we have to adjourn, don't we?
Yes, that's what I was about to do.
Let's do it.
Okay, do
So
I have a
moved.
motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Please, somebody.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.